Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Real Tours. But please, don't hold that against me. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. As we greet the week, I will be greeting you with a new and exciting little bit of real estate news. I hope it is useful for you. As I mentioned last week, a theme for the next few shows is absolutely going to be the state of the economy, the recession, and I'm saying the recession, not will there be a recession. Lots of numbers out there that we can look at, and we're going to absolutely on this show next week on Monday. It's a big topic, so I'm trying to get together as much information as I possibly can so that we cover good info. But we've already passed the mile marker, right? We are going 75 miles an hour down the freeway. We've passed the exit. We are already there. We are in a recession. So we'll discuss why that is, what that is, and also its effects on real estate and why, no reason to panic, just like anything else. Whenever bad things happen, the worst thing you can do is panic and make really bad emotional decisions, those kinds of things. And we're going to cover all of that. For right now, though, I wanted to cover some interesting data on metro areas with the highest yearly price gains. Now, notice I didn't say the highest priced metros, because that's not what we're talking about. Now, we can quickly go over the highest priced metros, in which there are an awful lot of West Coast cities, particularly in California, which is super annoying. In my area, for instance, the San Jose, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara County area, it's really insane. I mean, the average price, $1.875 million, up 25% from the same time last year. So not a great place to be forced to buy. And I hate to use the word forced. No one's ever forced to buy, right? But if you're a seller, now, so these two lists kind of sit in different zones, right? If we were to look at the highest priced areas, which obviously that's the San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Irvine, urban Honolulu, San Diego, Carlsbad, California, Boulder, Colorado, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Glendale, Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, Naples, Immokalee, Marco Island, Florida, Denver, Aurora, Lakewood, Colorado. All of those areas are the most expensive real estate markets, with the cheapest one being Denver, Aurora, Lakewood, Colorado at $662,200, which is up 19.4% from last year. I rattle those off real quick because those would be aimed at folks in that market that either own investment properties or own single-family residentials, townhomes, condos, whatever, to consider the possibility that it may be time for you to get out of that market. We are, as I mentioned, we're going to be heading into a recession. Maybe I should provide the proof before I just say that. We're going to cover that again, as I said, in an upcoming show. But the news is out there. And I think that regardless of whether you believe me or not, or whether you believe we're in a recession, given where the prices are, which is not arguable, this should kick off in your head I need to evaluate my particular scenario right now. Is this a situation where the smart move is to pull out my equity and do something else with it? Or should I stay and hold? Right? If your idea is I'm going to hold the property I'm in forever and I'm never going to sell it, and that's the plan and that's what I'm going to do, more power to you. But I always suggest whenever we hit either chronological milestones like once a year or major event in the world things like a recession, it's an important time to review your holdings to figure out whether or not your money could be working better for you somewhere else. Or another way to put it, working harder for you, making you more money. If you can take $100,000, put it into something and have it make you $10,000 a year, and it does that, and then you discover that you could move that $100,000, which is probably more now, right? Because you've built up more equity in terms of the value of the property that it's invested in. Could you invest that into something else and have that make $15,000 or $20,000 a year? Those are the decisions I'm encouraging you to evaluate in a moment like this. Can this make more money for you somewhere else? So that's that. Now, just to kick off that thought process for you. On the other side is this list of areas with the greatest amount of percentage increase. So not the most expensive markets, but markets that have seen the greatest amount of growth. And those are numbers or news items or tidbits that are great little crumbs for you to follow to figure out, why is it happening in these areas? And is this just the beginning? Or are these places also sort of hitting their peak? I don't think we are in, despite recession territory, as has happened in past markets. I think that there are markets that will remain stable in terms of their prices. In other words, I don't think in some markets you'll see dramatic downturns in home values. You might just see stability. And what we want to do is evaluate these areas that have seen increases in the percentage, right? Not the total amount you're going to pay for a place, but the percentage increase. We want to determine why that is. What is drawing people to these areas that's causing such dramatic percentage increases in those markets? All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. We'll run down just the top 10 here. And again, I want you to use these as an interesting opportunity for you to evaluate why this is happening. Some interesting notes right off the bat. None of these cities are on the West Coast, right? So none of them are in those crazy markets we just listed off. In fact, there's nothing in Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, which is interesting. You would think Boise would be there because, as I don't know if we covered it on a show, but I know that Boise was rated the most overrated city or overblown in terms of prices city in the country, which I thought was interesting because remember, I was talking to you about Boise several years ago as a place that would be a strong investment. And if I had taken my advice, or you had taken my advice, you would have benefited from that because if that's the kind of news going around, that would be an indicator that you might want to think about liquidating, might want to think about backing out, depending on when you bought. I mean, I think Boise is still a super strong rental market, and I still talk to people who are moving there all the time. So despite headlines, remember, we're not headline people here. We're fact people here, and the facts seldom arrive in the headlines. So we'll spend a little bit more time looking at that, and particularly at Boise in a future show. But that was an article that came out. I have it on the queue of interesting articles to cover in the show. But I thought it was an interesting one to mention now. All right, so let's go ahead and start with number 10. This is an interesting one. This one also falls on the list of cities that I have seen come up on my radar. Not because I went and found it, but because clients of mine who are discussing moving options have considered this as one of their cities. Salt Lake City, Utah, has probably been at least in the top 5 cities. I've had conversations with folks recently who were talking again about Boise, Phoenix, and Salt Lake City have definitely been on this list. In fact, interestingly enough, while not the city with the most entries on this list, it does have 2. Number 10, Salt Lake City, Utah, 27.9% year-over-year increase in prices, with the average price being $556,000, $557 if we round it. So not a horrible amount of money, at least if you're coming from my market, obviously, where the average is $1.5 million. So saving $1 million on your house in terms of the amount of debt you might accrue. All right, so creeping down to number 9 on the list is Myrtle Beach, Conway, North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, North Carolina. I'm not sure what the arrangement there is. I'm not super familiar with that area, and I'm not sure why it crosses 2 states, but we'll go with it. 28% increase year over year, with a average home price of $342,000, which I think is amazing. That's actually pretty good. I think that anytime you can be under 400, at least in my book, we're in stronger borrowing for we're in stronger investing levels in terms of how much you're going to have to borrow, right? Percentage down, all those types of things. You're in a much more reasonable position. So that's Myrtle Beach at number 9. Number 8 is Northport, Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida. What's interesting about Florida is it is the dominator of this list with 5 of the top 10 cities located in Florida. Florida is experiencing a huge boom. I had been looking at Florida for a little while and have definitely seen dramatic increases at all property levels. I've looked at, for single-family residential, and I've also looked at condos with an eye towards being short-term rentals because those tend to really blow the doors off in terms of maximizing your profit. But here we are, number 8, North Post, Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida, 28% increase from the same time last year with an average home price of $480,000. Which is a little higher than I would really like to pay in Florida, since I know how much it was the last time I looked. But yes, dramatic increases in prices there. Number 7 is Fort Collins, Colorado, with 28.4% increase. $602,400 is the average price there. Coming in at number 6. Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida. Now, I'm actually pretty familiar with that area. I was in that area for quite some time in the 90s. In fact, I was even there when the big old hurricane hit. When was that? Geez, early 90s. Shut down the entire East Coast, and I was in that area. $379,900 is the average price in that metro area. And again, just a ridiculous increase. If we were to average out more than just the last few years, the increase there has been ridiculous. Number 5 on our list. Where's number 5? Decatur, Alabama, 28.9% increase year over year for a $237,400 average home price. Now, that's going to be pretty much the lowest obstacle to entry. So if you're someone who's using this list as an opportunity to get a look into what should I be investing? Where should I look? And you believe that Decatur, Alabama is close enough to you that it makes sense. It's really close to the border with Tennessee. So maybe you're in Tennessee and you're thinking, I'm going to invest there. Get a feel for what's going on there, why it's at 28.9 in terms of the amount of increase over the last year, and see where you feel that is. Is that at the beginning of a cycle for this particular city, or is it at the end of a cycle? But it represents a relatively low bar in terms of entry. You're not having to come up with $50,000 or $100,000. This is a situation where you can come up with a very reasonable amount in order to make a purchase so that you can start investing or owning your own home. All right, number 4, and we jump right back to Florida. Lakeland, Winter Haven, Florida, 30.1% increase year over year for an average home price of $320,000. Lakeland is a little bit inland, if I remember correctly, so it's not going to be coastal. For my money, if you're in Florida, the reason to be there is coastal, right? So if you're looking at it as an investment, if you're looking at it, and particularly if you're going to do short-term rentals, unless there's a huge amount of tourist interest in that area, I would tend to lean more toward, I'd be willing to spend a little bit more in order to get into those areas. Because I think that you're going to preserve the value of that property more. It's going to be more attractive to vacation renters, and I think it's also going to be more attractive to long-term renters. So I think on all fronts, you tend to protect your investment more. And I could be completely wrong. I've never been to Lakeland. I'm simply looking at a pin and a map, but I'd want to know more about the draw there. Is Lakeland or Winter Haven, Florida, a destination spot for some other reason? Is it for fishing or whatever else? I know a little bit about Florida, spent some time there, lived in Deerfield Beach for a year and spent quite a bit of time in Tampa. However, whenever I went inland, it was mosquito fest, and I hated it. So that's one reason why I think Florida is a strong place to make that distinction. All right, number 3 on our list, Ogden, Clearfield, Utah. So this is the second appearance of a city on our list that's in Utah, with a 30.8% increase from the same time last year, with an average home price of $473,800. I can talk money. I can make the words. Let's see, number 2, Ocala, Florida, 33.8% increase from the same time last year, for an average home price of $267,400. I've been to Ocala. I like Ocala. I think Ocala is a great little town. Number one on our list, Punta Gorda, Florida, 34.4%, $376,300 is the average price. And I think that I think number 1, number 8, and number 6, which are Punta Gorda, Northport, Sarasota, Bradenton, and Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, are all pretty easy decisions to make in terms of cities where you can invest. Florida's doing a lot of things that are encouraging growth, encouraging business. Florida is absolutely, the entire state of Florida is in that top 10 list that I mentioned earlier of destinations where folks are going. I've talked to quite a few folks recently who have decided that they're going to leave California, sell their home here, and move to Florida without even really saying where. But Florida is the destination, so they're hot to get there. So as we sometimes do, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the market in Punta Gorda. Now, remember, what I'm going to give you is not the metro area of Punta Gorda. This is actually the city of Punta Gorda, which the numbers there are even more shocking, to be honest. Now, Punta Gorda has the Gasparilla Sound Charlotte Harbor, and it's right across from Port Charlotte. If you just look at the city of Punta Gorda, the average price is $442,000, which over 1 year is a 45.3% increase. Yeah, I didn't say that wrong. 45.3% increase. So despite the metro area having increased 34.4%, just the city of Punta Gorda beats that by 10 percentage points. So, shop wisely in these areas where you've seen such a dramatic increase. And boy, do we want to pay attention to why these numbers are where they are and whether or not they're going to be resilient. Now, there's an awful lot going on in Florida right now, but it's a definite hockey stick that we're looking at. Now, I started looking in Florida in various areas in 2020, mid 2020, and at that point, the average price was $260,000 for a home. So you're paying $200,000 more just 2 years later. So that's a dramatic increase. If we look at all homes, that's where the numbers are. If we look at single family homes, that number gets even crazier. Where, let's see, what is that? 531,000 is the average. And if we look at condos and co-ops, it's 359,000. So for my money, I'd be looking at a condo. I'd be looking at something that is either close to the water or at least has a glimpse of the water. Again, whenever you're buying a property with an idea towards investment, try to identify the reasons why someone would go there. Obviously, one reason to buy here is because you want a view of the water. This is Florida, right? You want that. You want the reason that people go there. So if we go and we look at current homes for sale in Punta Gorda, what we end up seeing is a pretty good variety. So if in terms of advice to you, for my buyers and investors out there, what I would do is take the cities on this list that interest you. Go ahead and zoom in. Go in there on Realtor.com or Zillow or Trulia, Redfin, whatever your favorite tool is. I usually suggest Realtor, not because out of any loyalty to Realtor.com or because I'm a realtor, but simply because if a property is not going to show up on a website, it's likely going to show up on Realtor.com. There are options when a real estate agent lists a home for them to not allow it to be shared with other sites, meaning Zillow and Trulia and Redfin. But 99 times out of 100, that's not going to include Realtor.com. So just keep that in mind in terms of access to listings. So I would zoom in. I would set the criteria that I care about, whether you're someone who's interested in single-family residential or you're interested in a condo perhaps to do the vacation rental thing I'm leaning into. Then go ahead and select your optional filters and filter for the reason why you would live in that area. And in this case, a view of the water. And when you do that, you see an awful lot of options, and you even see some price cuts, which I think is encouraging. I'm seeing properties listed. I'm seeing 109 agent listings and 9 others, which probably indicates for sale by owners. And here's a duplex that's for sale by owner, $775,000. Excuse me. At least it looks like a duplex. So that could be interesting for someone for some other house hacking style investing. But I'm seeing everything from I see one for $98,000, but that looks like it might be a mobile home, so we'll skip that one. But I'm seeing an awful lot right here on the water, ranging in price from $1.9 million, which is a single family residential right on a waterway, to $385,000, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit that clearly faces the water, and it looks like a lovely place, Mike. And also, the final tidbit of information is have the key bits of what this property must have for you to be successful in your mind. So, for instance, if you're pursuing the vacation rental path, which is a great one to go with, the only complications of that are whether or not the city, county, and state you're in are friendly to short-term rentals. If you're someone who's going to invest in Hawaii, I have an investment property in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. You need to be very, very careful because the local government is extremely hostile to private property owners doing short-term rentals. You can check the newspaper headlines. Oahu just outlawed vacation rentals on the entire island. It's amazing the limitations that they seem to think that they can put on the ownership of property and what you can and can't do with it. And obviously this is, I'm sure someone has a different take on this, and I'm sure this isn't the headline they share when they're putting it out there, but the hotel lobby on Oahu is just so strong. Anyone who says they're doing this because they're preserving neighborhoods, I think is being a little disingenuous, but that's just my opinion. But in any event, understand what the key elements are. Find out how friendly or unfriendly local government is to short-term rentals. And one thing to ask, because this is super common, if you're interested in Florida, you're interested in the short-term rental scene, before you waste your time, the first question to ask is, does this HOA put any limitations on short-term rentals? Because the vast majority of the ones I've encountered do. They say it's got to be at least 30 days. It's got to be at least 60 days. It's got to be at least 90 days. So if that's the case, you either need to come up with a strategy that conforms to that, where you're doing quote-unquote short-term rentals that are 60 to 90 days, which is not an easy one to do. I know people who attempt it and manage to do it to one degree or another, but it doesn't happen frequently. So I would suggest just avoiding it. But if you have an HOA that is friendly to that, then go ahead and consider it as a possibility. In many of these, for instance, I'm looking at one, $385,000, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, 988 square feet, which is a pretty optimal short-term rental property. This is on 1500 Park Beach Circle, apartment 4G, so it's the 4th floor. And as I look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it looks like it's only a 5-story, maybe a 6-story. If the first floor is just all parking, the first floor would be parking. So 4 is good. It looks like it'll have a view, which depends. It looks thick enough that there could actually be units that don't have views towards the water. They'll frequently tell you in the overview whether or not it allows short-term rentals. Guest bath condo comes with assigned parking spot and adjacent storage unit. Fisherman's Village, roll down hurricane shutters. Condo boasts rooftop pool. A rooftop pool. Well, that's kind of awesome. Soak up the Florida sun here or enjoy the beautiful sunsets from this elevated perch. Secured entry, which is nice. It doesn't. This one does not say anything about the time, but it shows who it's listed by. So if this was something I was interested in, my very first step would be to reach out to that agent and say, hey, and you don't have to talk to them. You could just email them and say, Does this HOA limit the amount of time that you can rent, or does it say you have to have a minimum of 30, 60, 90-day rental periods? And they should know that. Under facts and features, I wonder if there's anything there. Nope, not seeing anything. But an easy question to get answered. And the great thing is, despite the fact we're seeing this growth, I am seeing properties where the price is down. I'm seeing another one with a condo for sale that clearly has water views for $489,000, 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, where the price is down $5,000. So it's definitely a market where you can take a look and see what works for you. And I'm hoping these are strategies that you can internalize. And as you move through, whether you're a buyer who's just looking to buy that first home and maybe you're going to try to house hack, or maybe you just want to find a place to live, or you're a seller who's trying to figure out what the top point is where you should sell, or where you should consider accelerating your selling plans because of what the market's doing, or you're an investor, a hardcore investor who's been doing it for a long time. You want to make sure your property ticks as many boxes as possible. The buyer, because when somewhere down the road you sell it, you want to have all those attractive things. You make your money when you buy your property. So buy the right property right up front, because then when it does come time to sell, you're going to sell first, you're going to sell best, and you're going to sell for the most, because you've got all the boxes ticked that you ticked when you bought the property. And if there were some boxes that weren't ticked, that are boxes you can control, right? You can't control location, you can't control water view, but you can control other things. If you can add a box to tick because it's something you can do, that's fantastic, right? But it's all about securing your investment from the day you buy it, not just the day you sell it. So I hope that's been helpful for everybody. As always, the goal is to leave more knowledge on the table than I take up in your time, and I hope we've accomplished that. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you all next week. So have a good one.